Well, we finished the book of Deuteronomy, and the book of Deuteronomy basically concluded what we call the Torah: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And that area takes us from basically the man's fall to the time when Israel is about to enter into the promised land. And most of that Torah, that law, consists of laws that were to govern the people of Israel and make it into a unique nation, a nation that would be different than any other nation. And this nation was, by virtue of the way that it conducted its business, would attract the attention of other nations and theoretically want those nations to emulate it. And so, the very end of Deuteronomy, we saw that Moses proceeded to lecture the people and say, obey this law. You are about to enter into the land. Obey the law and trust God. And so that's where it left us. Moses dies and he's buried by God himself. And so that no one knows where his body was. And he handed over the reins to a man by the name of Joshua, Yehoshua ben Nun, Joshua the son of Nun. And he lays hands on him and tells the people to follow him. And so we begin the book of Joshua, which begins a whole new chapter in Jewish history. Israel was out of the land. Now they're entering into the land as a nation. Abraham had sojourned in the land, but he didn't own the land. Isaac sojourned in the land, but didn't own the land. And Jacob, his son, left the land, came back to the land, and finally had to leave the land and wind up in Egypt, where God grew the nation. They became very, very populous. And very much like a woman in labor, before life is formed, there's a lot of pain. And so Israel went through pain. It endured slavery. And finally, they were expelled from the womb of Egypt and driven into the wilderness. And now they're being, I guess, for lack of a better term, born again. They had to go through the water of the Red Sea, and now they're about to enter through the water of the Jordan. And so we pick up chapter 1, and we begin basically the rest of the Bible, certainly the rest of the Old Testament, which will deal with Israel in the land that God had promised Abraham. So let's pick up at verse 1. After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, and notice that this phrase is used throughout Joshua. We're always looking back at Moses as the servant of the Lord. It came to pass that the Lord spoke to Joshua the son of Nun, Moses' assistant, saying, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now therefore arise, go over this Jordan, you and all this people, to the land which I am giving to them, the children of Israel. Every place that the sole of your foot will tread upon, I have given to you, as I said to Moses. From the wilderness and this Lebanon, as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, and to the great sea towards the going down of the sun, shall be your territory. No man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not leave you nor forsake you. Be strong and of good courage, for to this people you shall divide as an inheritance the land which I swore to their father to give them. Only be strong and very courageous, that you may observe to do all the law which Moses, my servant, commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may prosper wherever you go. This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it and day and night, that you may observe to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have a good success. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid, nor be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. So I post here, as those of you who can see my screen, what is necessary for Israel's success.
Obedience.
Yeah.
Obedience. Obedience
Yes.
to what?
It says, be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid. The Lord is with you.
Mm-hmm. He says obedience to the law.
Yeah.
Now I'm not sounding like a good evangelical, although I am. But Israel was called upon to be obedient to the law in order to maintain her boundaries. And the law essentially was the means by which the people could be governed. The laws were not necessarily strictly matters of ritual. Yes, they had laws concerning foods and keeping of the Sabbath and so on, but it also included things like if you see your neighbor's donkey in trouble, even if he's your enemy, to help your neighbor. If you build a house, then put a fence around the roof so that nobody falls off. This makes sense. And so obedience what was necessary for Israel's success. Now, I was reading yesterday, I'm reading a simple history book, beautifully put together. It's just, for high school, because I wanted to get a good grasp on some elements of history and compare it to what Scripture says. And this book, which I will, I forget the author's name, I did meet her, pointed out, for instance, that one of the popes was distinguished by what distinguished him was that he enforced celibacy among the papacy. Well, what does this? Here was the leader of the church advocating that priests and bishops should be celibate. When Paul said to Timothy, and I believe Titus as well, that a bishop is to be the husband of one wife and to be able to manage his household well, because if he can't manage his own household, how will he manage the people of God? But he instituted celibacy because he thought that this was a more spiritual way that a man could conduct business, and understandably, he wouldn't have to worry about his family. He'd worry more about the people of God. But Paul had already outlined how to do things.
Yeah.
And so what we wind up having is church leaders who profess Christ, who don't follow what Scripture says. And in much of church history, they ignored the Torah because, according to Paul, the law was irrelevant. Well, the law was only irrelevant as far as the rituals that the rabbis had established. We've learned some of the law that Moses had taught, and we saw how absolutely, utterly relevant it was. We saw other aspects of the law which can't be performed today. There is no tabernacle. There is no Holy of Holies. There is no high priest. The high priest is now Yeshua, Jesus. And in that aspect of the law, Jesus fulfilled it. There is atonement for our sins through Jesus. Another thing that's interesting is that they decided to, in the dark ages, priests bought their position. Well,
Yeah,
first of all, a priest doesn't have a position equivalent to what God had called upon, according to Moses. The priest was to teach, but he was also to offer sacrifices, animal sacrifices on behalf of the people. But another thing about the priests was that their position was hereditary. They were descendants of Aaron, the high priest. They could not buy their position. You were either born a priest or you weren't. And so we see post-Christian Christianity utterly corrupted because they ignored the Old Testament. Well, we've forgotten, and we're going on with Joshua, but Benjamin Elegant made a New Year's resolution. I've concluded that I had not spent enough time either in the Psalms or the Proverbs. So I'm reading a Psalm and a Proverb every day. And also because, even as we saw here, that we've been called upon to remember this law, I'm continuing reading over again the Mosaic Law. I'm not up with the Jewish community. They've already started Exodus today. I'm still back at Genesis chapter 20, but I'll catch up. But this is a commitment because I cannot forget the law because it convicts of sin. And I seek him above all things. And I recommend it for you guys. Verse 10. Then Joshua commanded the officers of the people, saying, pass through the camp and command the people, saying, prepare provisions for yourselves. For within 3 days you will cross over this Jordan to go in to possess the land which the Lord your God is giving to you to possess. And to the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, Joshua spoke, saying, remember the word which Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, saying, the Lord your God is giving you rest and is giving you this land. Your wives, your little ones, and your livestock shall remain in the land which Moses gave you on this side of the Jordan. Well, where is Moses speaking from? Let me take a look here. I think it's in my notes. It's not there. Let's look down a little bit. There we are. Moses is right here in the place called Shittim, which means the forest of trees. And we see here Mount Nebo. This is where Moses was preaching from. But they're encamped at Shittim, and we see the Jordan Valley, and they are about, according to our scale here, they are about 15 miles from Jericho. And this is during the flood area, the time when the Jordan overflows its banks. They're probably right at the foot where the Jordan is overflowing, not quite there. And they're located right here opposite Jericho. And so this is where Joshua is preaching from. He's talking to Israel in that location. And so he says, prepare provisions for yourself, for within 3 days you will cross over this Jordan to go in to possess the land which the Lord your God is giving you to possess. And the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, Joshua spoke to them. Now, he basically, in summary, because I think I just read this, he told these people, the Reubenites, Gadites, and Manasseh, that their men have to cross over the Jordan and fight alongside the rest of Israel in order to take the land on the west side of the Jordan. That's the gist of it. And they had sworn an oath to Moses doing so. And so in verse 14, we see your wives, your little ones, your livestock shall remain in the land. That's the land that's east of the Jordan, which Moses gave you on this side of the Jordan. And again, he's speaking from the east side of the Jordan. But you shall pass. Are you confused yet?
No.
Everybody got it?
I got it.
But you shall pass before your brethren, armed, all your mighty men of valor, and help them, until the Lord has given your brethren rest, as he gave you, and they shall also have taken possession of the land which the Lord your God is giving them. Then you shall return to the land of your possession and enjoy it, which Moses the Lord's servant gave you on this side of the Jordan toward the sunrise. So, what were the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh to inherit? They were to inherit the land. What's that, Doug?
Yeah. Well, the ones on the east side is the Reubenites, the Gadites, and Manasseh, right?
Right. They were to inherit the land on the east side of the Jordan. And what did Moses require of them?
Yeah, to go across and help the other 9 tribes.
Right. You got it. So they answered Joshua, saying, all that you command us, we will do. And whatever you send us, we will go. Just as we heeded Moses in all things, so we will heed you. Only the Lord your God be with you, as he was with Moses. Whoever rebels against your command and does not heed your words in all that you command him shall be put to death. Only be strong and of good courage. Isn't that an interesting sort of a blessing?
Yeah, yeah.
We will obey. Only you follow the Lord. It says something about the relationship of husband and wife. We will obey, only you follow the Lord. I don't know if that's too sexist or not. Be strong and of good courage. Was someone going to say something? Now I'm going to ask, was their promise to Joshua any good? And I'm going to hold that until the end. We will find out. And here's basically what we just read was a reiteration of Deuteronomy 3, 18 through 20, where Moses is speaking to Israel, and he's speaking specifically to Manasseh, Ephraim, and Gad. Then I commanded you at this time, saying, the Lord your God has given you this land to possess. All you men of valor shall cross over armed before your brethren, the children of Israel. But your wives, your little ones, and your livestock, I know that you have much livestock, shall stay in your cities which I have given you, until the Lord has given rest to your brethren as to you, and they also possess the land which the Lord your God is giving them beyond the Jordan. And each of you may return to his possession, which I have given you. So that brings us to chapter 2. Now Joshua the son of Nun sent out 2 men from Acacia Grove, that is Shittim, which I showed on the map, to spy secretly, saying, go view the land, especially Jericho. So they went and came to the house of a harlot named Rahab, and lodged there. And it was told the king of Jericho, saying, behold, men have come here tonight from the children of Israel to search out the country. So the king of Jericho sent to Rahab, saying, bring out the men who have come to you, who have entered your house, for they have come to search out the country. Then the woman took the 2 men and hid them. So she said, yes, the men came to me, but I did not know where they were from. And it did happen as the gate was being shut, when it was dark, the men went out. Where the men went, I do not know. Pursue them quickly, for you may overtake them. But she had brought them up to the roof and threw them in the stalks of flax, which she had laid in order on the roof. Then the men pursued them by the road to the Jordan, to the fords. And as soon as those who pursued them had gone out, they shut the gate. So I asked this question, was it a sin for Rahab to have lied?
Well, I think it was a sin, but they were protecting the Israelites.
And who else is there? Charlotte? Charlotte, can you say something? Just say hi. Because I'm hearing this like gurgling sound. I don't know who it's coming from. Anyway, what do we know about Rahab? She was going by faith. she knew that Israel was representing God. And yeah, I guess God could have rescued the spies another way. But all I can say is that this is the way that the scenario worked its way out. Does that say that we should lie? I don't think
Well,
so.
it appears that Rahab was already maybe interested in the Jewish way of life for her to do that.
Yeah, that could be. That she hid the men. She she did the right thing.
Yeah.
I think that there are perhaps times when lying is necessary. I
Well,
know that people hid Jews in Germany.
yeah, and they lied about where they hid them. So yeah, it'd be the same thing.
Yeah, I think part of the question is, who is your enemy?
Yeah.
It's a question that we really don't have an adequate answer for. But we do know this, that God honored Rahab.
Yeah.
In fact, Rahab is an ancestor of Jesus. Now, how's that for an honor?
And in what way?
Huh?
In what way?
If you were to go through the genealogies of Jesus, I think Luke chapter 3 or Matthew chapter 1,
Okay. Okay.
you would discover that she was the grandmother of Boaz.
Oh, okay. How about that?
Verse 8. Now before they lay down, she came up to them on the roof and said to the men, I know that the Lord has given you the hand, that the terror of you has fallen on us, and that all the inhabitants of the land are faint-hearted because of you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt. Well, that was a long time ago already. That happened 40 years ago. And it was a legend. It had become a legend. Let's see, where are we? And what you did to the two kings of the Amorites who were on the other side of the Jordan, Sihon and Og, whom you utterly destroyed. We read about that in the book of Numbers.
Uh-huh.
And as soon as we heard these things, now they were pretty powerful nations. And soon as we heard these things, our hearts melted. Neither did there remain any more courage in anyone because of you. For the Lord your God, he is God in heaven above and on earth beneath. Who's saying that? Rahab.
This Rahab, yeah.
Rahab, she's a harlot, and she's and she's a Canaanite. But she fears God, and she knows that God of Israel is the God who created the universe. Verse 12. Now therefore I beg you, swear to me by the Lord, since I have shown you kindness, that you also will show kindness to my father's house, and give me a true token, and spare my father, my mother, my brothers, my sisters, all that they have and deliver our from death. Notice in Deuteronomy 2, it says, rise up, take your journey and cross over the river Arnon. Look, I have given into your hands Sihon and the Amorite, king of Heshbon, and his land. Begin to possess it and engage him in battle. Just want to correct this one thing. This day I will begin to put the dread and fear of you upon all the nations under the whole of heaven, who shall hear the report of you and shall tremble and be in anguish because of you. There was a motley crew, former slaves, maybe 1 million people, maybe 2 million, getting an army of about maybe 600,000. But everyone is afraid of them. And why? Because God is with them.
Yeah.
He parted the Red Sea and he defeated these enemies. So the men answered her. These are the men who were spying out the land. Our lives for yours, if none of you tell this business of ours. In other words, keep it a secret, Rahab. We're working on this together. And it shall be when the Lord has given us the land that we will deal kindly and truly with you. Then she let them down by a rope through the window of her house, for her house was on the city wall. She dwelt on the wall, and she said to them, get to the mountain, lest the pursuers meet you. Hide there 3 days until the pursuers have returned. Afterward, you may go your way. So the men said to her, we will be blameless of this oath of yours, which you have made us swear, unless when we come into the land, you bind this line of scarlet cord on the window through which you let us down. And unless you bring your father and your mother and your brothers and all your father's household to your own home, so it shall be that whoever goes outside the doors of your house into the street, his blood shall be on his own head, and we will be guiltless. So in other words, put the scarlet thread out the window, make it visible, and we will spare your life and the lives of your family. And then it says, whoever is with you in the house, his blood shall be on our head if a hand is laid on him. In other words, we will be responsible for everyone who is in your house. And if you tell this business of ours, then we will be free from our oath, which you made us swear. In other words, if she tells the people of Jericho that they were there, that she was visited by spies who chased them, we're absolved from our obligation to you. Then she said, according to your words, so be it. And she sent them away, and they departed. And she bound the scarlet cord in the window. They departed and went to the mountain and stayed there 3 days until the pursuers returned. The pursuers sought them all along the way, but did not find them. So the two men returned, descended from the mountain, crossed over. Now they're crossing back over the Jordan to the east side of the Jordan. And they came to Joshua, son of Nun, and told him all that had befallen them. And they said to Joshua, truly God delivered all the land into our hands, for indeed all the inhabitants of the country are faint-hearted because of them. So I ask, this may be somewhat of a trick question. You may remember that long time ago in the book of Numbers, some 38 years prior. 12 spies were sent out to investigate the land. They were sent out from a place called Kadesh Barnea. And in this case, 2 spies go out, and there's an obvious difference. There's a difference of 10 men. But can anyone think of what made this spying adventure different than the previous one?
Well,
Go ahead,
the
Doug.
12, the 12 were going over the whole country, right? And they were
Right.
just going Jericho. The
That's a
2 were
good.
just finding Jericho.
The 2 spies just took Jericho. The other spies covered the entire territory.
Yeah,
What did they bring back?
they brought back uh, produce from the country.
Right. And they showed that the land was good.
Uh-huh.
What information didn't they have?
Oh, they asked them to check out the landscape and the people, and come back with a report from them.
Okay. I think also the thing that is unique between this spy activity and the other spy activity is that the spies that left Kadesh Barnea didn't know the attitude of the people of the land. They just
Yeah,
saw them. Here we see that the spies, by interviewing one woman, saw the attitude and the character of the people. And by doing that, they said, wow, we can take this land. I think it's good to know your enemy. I think of a similar incident in Judges chapter 7. And when Gideon had come, there was a man telling a dream. Gideon has snuck into the camp of the Midianites, and he's probably behind a tent somewhere. And he hears a man telling a dream to his companion. He said, I have had a dream. To my surprise, a loaf of barley bread tumbled into the camp of Midian. It came to a tent and struck it so that it fell and overturned, and the tent collapsed. Then his companion answered and said, This is nothing else but the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, man of Israel, and into his hand God has delivered Midian and the whole camp. Wow. What a nice bit of information Gideon figured out. This was enough to convince Gideon to fight. It was enough to encourage Joshua to fight.
uh-huh.
Although there is another element to it. You have to know for certain that God is with you. And you have to follow his direction. So let's move on. Chapter 3. Then Joshua rose early in the morning, and they set out from Shittim and came to the Jordan, he and all the children of Israel, and lodged there before they crossed over. So it was after 3 days that the officers went through the camp, and they commanded the people, saying, when you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, and the priests, the Levites, bearing it, then you shall set out from your place and go after it. Yet there shall be a space between you and it, about 2,000 cubits. I figured that's a little bit more than half a mile. A half a mile between the first Israelites and the priests. Why would you suppose that that would be necessary?
Because if somebody was going to die, I wouldn't want to be close to them.
Okay, that's an interesting perspective.
If they touched the ark or did something they weren't supposed to do.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't do that because actually they're going to come, they're going to pass the ark as the ark is
Okay.
goes into the water. But
They were
do you guys
instructed.
know where the pyramid is in Memphis?
Mm-hmm.
If you were a mile away from the pyramid, could you see it?
Mm-hmm.
What if you didn't have any direction? Could you make your way there?
I think so.
And the reason is because it's a landmark.
Mm-hmm.
It tells you where to go. And so the Ark of the Covenant was serving as a landmark to tell the rest of the nation to follow it. Does that make sense?
It
Yeah.
does.
Uh, and here's the reason that you may know the way by which you must go. And why? For you have not passed this way before. You're not familiar with this territory. I remember when I first moved to Memphis, I got very lost. I found myself in Shelby Farms. Somebody drove next to me and said, "You lost?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Go this way." Well, the people of Israel weren't going to get any help from the people of Canaan.
Uh-uh.
Go this way. They had to follow the direction of the Lord. So the first thing that we see is they're crossing the Jordan and they have to follow the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark was their what's it called? The guide. Verse 5. And Joshua said to the people, sanctify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you. Then Joshua spoke to the priests, saying, take up the Ark of the Covenant and cross over before the people. So they took up the Ark of the Covenant and went before the people. And the Lord said to Joshua, this day I will begin to exalt you in the sight of all Israel, that they may know that as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. You shall command the priests who bear the Ark of the Covenant, saying, when you have come to the edge of the water of the Jordan, you shall stand in the Jordan. Now the Jordan was in the flood stage, and the Jordan is a relatively narrow river. They're relatively narrow and shallow. But if it's in the flood stage, I couldn't begin. I'm not that familiar with the territory, but from the map that we saw, it could very well have been well over a mile wide. So Joshua said to the children of Israel, come here and hear the words of the Lord your God. And Joshua said, By this you shall know that the living God is among you, and that he will without fail drive out from before you the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Hivites, Perizzites, Girgashites, the Amorites, and the Jebusites. Behold, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth is crossing over before you into the Jordan. Now therefore take for yourselves 12 men from the 12 tribes of Israel, one man from every tribe. And it shall come to pass, as soon as the soles of the feet of the priests who bear the ark of the Lord of all the earth, shall rest in the waters of the Jordan, that the waters of the Jordan shall be cut off, the waters that come down from upstream, and they shall stand as a heap. I love that term, the Lord of all the earth. Isn't it ironic that the Lord of all the earth has his sights specifically on this group of people? People nowadays say, oh, I believe in God. I believe God is with me. You know, he loves me, whatever. Yeah, he loves everyone. But God loves Israel. And his intent was to reveal himself and his nature through Israel. Verse 14. So it was when the people set out from their camp to cross over the Jordan, with the priests bearing the ark of the covenant before the people. And as those who bore the ark came to the Jordan, and the feet of the priests who bore the ark dipped in the edge of the water, for the Jordan overflows its banks during the whole time of harvest, that the waters which came down from upstream stood still, and rose in a heap very far away at Adam, the city which is beside Zaretan. Adam is fairly close to just south of the Sea of Galilee. And we're just north of the Dead Sea. So there's let's see if I'll pull that up on the map for you again. No, it's not on the map. Here we are. On this little map, you can see Adam is up here in this little map. And we're way down south. So the water stopped in such a way that all the water was gone from the Jordan River. And any that remained had already flowed into the Dead Sea. Let's move back here. The Lord said to Joshua, verse 7, this day will begin to exalt you. Verse 9, so Joshua said to the children of Israel, come here and hear the words of the Lord your God. And Joshua said, by this you shall know that the living God is among you. I read that already, didn't I? Yep, I did. That's what happens when you go back to your maps. Verse 14, so it was when the people set out from their camp, cross over the Jordan, with the priests bearing the ark of the covenant before the people. And as those who bore the ark came to the Jordan, and the feet of the priests who bore the ark dipped in the edge of the water, the Jordan overflows all its banks during the whole time of harvest, that the waters which came down from upstream stood still and rose in a heap very far away at Adam, the city that is beside Zaretan. So the waters that went down into the sea of Arabah, the salt sea, failed and were cut off, and the people crossed over opposite Jericho. Then the priests who bore the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood firm on dry ground in the midst of the Jordan, and all Israel crossed over on dry ground until the people had crossed completely over the Jordan.
Another miracle.
Another miracle, an amazing miracle. We're going to see a lot of amazing miracles in this book. We didn't really start. Let me go on to chapter 4. And it came to pass when all the people had completely crossed over the Jordan that the Lord spoke to Joshua, saying, Take for yourselves 12 men from the people, one man from every tribe, and command them, saying, Take for yourselves 12 stones from here, out of the midst of the Jordan, from the place where the priest's feet stood. You shall carry them over with you and leave them in the lodging place where you lodge tonight. So, in other words, we're going to make camp. The camp is going to be called Gilgal. It was on that map. It's opposite Shittim. And they're going to set up stones at that camp as a memorial that the Jordan had dried up. And they got these stones from the bottom of the Jordan. Verse 4. And Joshua called the 12 men, and they did accordingly. And it says here, what do these stones mean to you? Verse 6. Verse 7. Then you shall answer them that the waters of the Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord when it crossed over the Jordan. The waters of the Jordan were cut off, and these stones shall be for a memorial to the children of Israel forever. And the children of Israel did so, just as Joshua commanded, and took up 12 stones from the midst of the Jordan, as the Lord had spoken to Joshua, according to the number of the tribes of Israel, and carried them over with them to the place where they lodged, and laid them down there. And Joshua set up 12 stones in the midst of the Jordan, in the place where the feet of the priests who bore the ark of the covenant stood. And they are there to this day. Somewhere, the Jordan River is a heap of 12 stones. That is a memorial. So the priests who bore the ark stood in the midst of the Jordan until everything was finished that the Lord had commanded Joshua to speak to the people. Make note, the ark is preceding the people into the Jordan. There was no ark when the people crossed the Red Sea. That's an interesting thought. The Lord commanded Joshua to speak to the people according to that Moses had commanded Joshua. And the people hurried and crossed over. Then it came to pass when all the people had completely crossed over that the ark of the Lord and the priests crossed over in the presence of the people. And the men of Reuben, the men of Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh crossed over armed before the children of Israel, as Moses had spoken to them. About 40,000 prepared for war crossed over before the Lord for battle to the plains of Jericho. On that day, the Lord exalted Joshua in the sight of all Israel, and they feared him as they had feared Moses all the days of his life. God had just used Joshua to do a pretty wild thing, dry up the Jordan River. And the Lord spoke to Joshua, saying, Command the priests who bear the ark of the testimony to come up from the Jordan. Joshua therefore commanded the priests, saying, Come up from the Jordan. It came to pass when the priests bore the ark of the covenant of the Lord, had come from the midst of the Jordan, and the soles of the priests' feet touched dry land, that the waters of the Jordan returned to their place and overflowed all its banks. Now the people came up from the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month. Does that ring a bell to anyone? What month was it?
Nissan.
Nisan. You got it, Charlotte. This is the 10th day. What were you supposed to do on the 10th day?
Make your matzah.
Well, you were to make your matzah, but you were to choose your lamb.
Yeah.
You were to choose your lamb. And they camped in Gilgal on the east border of Jericho. And those 12 stones which they took out of the Jordan, Joshua set up in Gilgal. Then he spoke to the children of Israel, saying, when your children ask your fathers to come to in times to come, saying, what are these stones? Then you shall let your children know, saying, Israel crossed over this Jordan on dry land. For the Lord your God dried up the waters of the Jordan before you, until you had crossed, as the Lord your God did to the Red Sea, which he dried up before us, until we had crossed over, that all the peoples of the earth may know that the hand of the Lord, that it is mighty, that you may fear the Lord your God forever. I think we'll end here.
I can't
Any
wait
thoughts?
till we get to the part where Joshua tells the sun and the moon just to stand still and give me some more time to fight this battle.
Yes. Any other thoughts? Dean, you here with us?
Yeah, I had, I just like, we're talking about serious courage and faith, you know?
That's true. And you know what? We're going to have our share of battles, and we need to approach them with faith. And the only way that we can really and truly approach them with faith is through our relationship, our personal relationship with God. In order to do that, of course, we need Yeshua, we need Jesus. He takes away our sins. And of course, we need his word, because only through his word can we know him and understand his nature. And his word speaks to us as well. We need fellowship. We need to be around others who are like-minded. And we need to be willing to take up any challenges that the Lord would have us to face. And know that in the midst of them, he's with us. Amen? Okay, and so that ends our lesson for today.
How are you